anyway, the idea is there are photons, particles of light. A lot of people have heard of those because they're in Star Trek. Then there are other particles called phonons, which are particles of sound, like microphone, sort of a pun. And so what I did was we had this really advanced theory of how electrons and photons interact called quantum electrodynamics. And whenever you hear a scientist bragging about how accurate science is, they're talking about quantum electrodynamics, actually. So I was trying to create an analogous theory for electron-sound interactions called, I called it quantum sonodynamics, which, so the way I did it was, an electron can move from one atom to the next, and then, that's just something that happens. When you have sound going through, the distances are constantly changing, and so the probability of a jump is constantly changing, and so I sort of took that into account and was able to sort of deconstruct the sound, and that's explaining how it interacts with electrons. The main applications, there are two. The first is for something called superconductivity. The idea is that electrons will exchange phonons, bind together, and that'll make them flow more easily, so you'll have a much better conductor than you currently do. So we already have made superconductors. The hope is that this theory will help someone better than me come up with a better theory, which will better describe superconductors. And then the other application is heat. So heat is stored in the vibrations of atoms largely. It turns out it's actually usually transferred by electrons, and thus you can better figure out how heat moves through matter with this theory.
And how long were you working on this, and what was the process?
So I did most of my work last summer, working with a professor named Victor Golitsky. More commonly, I asked all my dumb questions about physics. I'd ask to his graduate students, who were incredibly helpful. So I go to University of Maryland every day over the summer and do physics.
What's the process of entering Intel?
So the idea is, you do a lot of college applications in November, then right after that you have to do another application, due November 12th for Intel. And it's the same sort of question, like describe a time when you were challenged in your life or whatever. And so I did this big long, and also more sciencey questions as well. So I submitted that, and then was made one of Blair's maybe 14 semifinalists or 16. We had some huge number of semifinalists, and then I was made Blair's only finalist. And then I went to the national competition in faraway Washington, D.C., and won.
What happens at Intel Finals? Is there like a big room where everyone talks about their projects?
So there are a few stages. So the first thing that happens is the judges will just talk to you about everything under the sun. So I got asked about everything from should we build the Keystone Pipeline to what effects should steroids have on people. We sort of have an exhibition where we show our projects to judges, and they ask you about the details of your project. And so that's also an interesting experience. And then I don't think it's judged how well you explain it to the public, but they then have a big public exhibition where I stand around for 5 hours explaining it to people, which was sort of fun.
How did you feel when they announced the winner?
So I was actually very surprised. So there were 3 categories: innovation, global good, and basic research. So I had thought of my project as basic research. So when they announced all 3 basic research prizes, I was like, okay, well, I had a good run. And then I was the last person to be announced, so I had sort of resigned myself to having had a good run and being a finalist at that point.
Why does science matter? Why should people who don't like science in high school and middle school care about science?
So first of all, everything from your smartphone to your shirt is made out of complicated scientific processes. While I personally do not enjoy studying biology, it's obviously incredibly important that we develop better medicines so that I can continue to eat unhealthy foods and still live long. And similarly, faster internet connections so I can continue watching YouTube videos and all sorts of other incredibly important things come from scientific research. And my research, if I'm really, really lucky, will help cut everyone's power bill 2/3.
People tend to ask Neil deGrasse Tyson what his favorite fact about the universe is. Do you have a favorite fact about the universe?
I guess one thing I saw recently, which is really cool, is something called aperture synthesis, which is you have 2 small telescopes really far away can function as one big telescope. Now that's pretty cool. You can have 2 small telescopes over here and here, and it's like I have 1 telescope this big.
So, are you a technological optimist or pessimist?
So what exactly does that mean?
So,
Do I welcome our new robot overlords, or am I scared of them?
do you buy that we're gonna have new robot overlords?
Yeah, maybe not within my lifetime, but I think eventually, machines will become better than us at almost everything. Although, this really sounds like science fiction now, but I think we're eventually gonna sort of incorporate that into ourselves and become cyborgs.
And are you worried by that?
I think in the sense, I guess I do welcome the future cyborgs, and I'd be really cool if my grandchildren, can do billion-digit multiplication in their head.
And what are you gonna do with the money?
Well, despite being the largest and most prestigious scholarship in the country, it's still not enough to actually pay for college. So I'm probably gonna pay for 3 of my years of college.
And afterwards, you went to the White House and talked to Obama. What did he say to you, and what did you say to him?
And so for most people, it's just like, hello, what's your name? Well, I'm Stephanie from West Virginia. Oh, hi, Stephanie. I actually mentioned that I campaigned for him, and he said, oh, did you do a good job? And I said, yeah, you won.
So
that was fun. The president laughed at my joke.
Nice.